Hey everybody, I'm here with Howie Klein. Howie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here in Los Angeles.
How's the Los Angeles today?
Beautiful, hot, beautiful weather. Really, really nice. Unfortunately, people are starting to let their guard down, and we see more and more people on the street walking around with no mask on. In fact, I should congratulate you because today is the first time that California has more new cases than New York. In fact, California has more new cases than any state in the country for the first time.
What's with all the cases? What's going on? Because of the relaxed standards or what?
Well, partially because of the relaxed standards and a lot of counties. The governor. We have a very weak governor. He talks well. He wants to be president one day. He takes really good care of his hair, but he's really not good. This guy Gavin Newsom. He's a neo-lib, a corporate shill. The corporations want him to open up, so he's opening up. I knew what was going to happen when what's that guy from Tesla? What's his name again?
Elon Musk.
Yeah, when Musk challenged him and said, "I don't care what you say, I'm opening up anyway," and he did nothing. He just let Musk. The governor did nothing. He just let Musk open up his factory, against the government of the state policies.
So by the way, before we go any further,
and that's who our governor is. Anyway, you don't have such a great governor either, but he had his misery. Our misery is coming.
I want to talk about that. I want to say, listen, this is why I wanted to have Howie on. He is a bold speaker. He speaks the truth often, and he says what he. What do you mean
often?
Well, listen, I don't agree with everything you say, but a lot of what you say is great. I mean, fantastic. Let's talk about Gavin Newsom for a second. Can I give you my opinion?
Please.
Because we're on the subject. So listen, I was in California when Gavin Newsom. I was in law school when Gavin Newsom ran against. What was his name?
Jerry Brown.
Nope. Before that, even when he ran for mayor of San Francisco.
Yes,
Matt Gonzalez.
Mayor, and he was like Mr. Gay Marriage.
He was, but even before that, he was considered a corporate guy versus Gonzalez. I think his name was Gonzalez, Matt Gonzalez, who was like.
Yes, he was very progressive.
Right. They were both liberal-ish, young guys, good-looking guys, let's be honest, handsome guys, who were running against each other. But Gavin Newsom was considered the corporate guy because his family had come from a rich, restaurant background, and he was. I don't know. I'm a little bit different than you. I think he was great on gay marriage. He was a leader at the time.
No, he's very good on social matters. If gays want to marry, he has no problem with that. And better than that, he'll build his career on it. And same with women getting abortions. I mean, he's fine with all that stuff. It's just when it comes to anything that has to do with economic issues that he's a corporate neoliberal guy.
So where does he? Doesn't he come from a very powerful family in California? I think a restaurateur family or something like that, or wineries or something. I'm not sure.
Yes, but not. I wouldn't quote. They're not like top of the heap. But he was friendly. He got friendly with the top of the heap people as quickly as he could.
He's a heck of. Listen, and this I want to have an open discussion here, and I'm going to talk about who Howie is in a second. But he's a heck of a great speaker, I think, and I think in some ways
he's very, very, very smart. Also, I got to know him when he was when he was first running for governor against Jerry Brown. Eventually, he dropped out of that race, but at the time, he invited all the Los Angeles political bloggers to a meeting, and everyone was there, including some really, really smart people. But there's no question he was the smartest guy in the room. He knew about everything, and he knew in detail about everything. And no matter what kind of question, how wonky it was, he could answer everything. It was really good. I'm not saying he's a dumbbell. He's certainly not.
He certainly would be far exceptional or much, much better than our current president. I mean, in every single way, shape, and form. But
anybody would be a better anything than our current president.
So let me talk about you for a second and who you are and how I
would be better than our current president. Also, our current president is a sociopath and a narcissist, and he's very, very dangerous.
He is dangerous.
The bar is too low. to say that somebody is better than Trump, because basically everybody's better than Trump.
So Howie, I first got to meet you. You ran a blog and you ran a PAC and you reached out to the campaign in 2018 and we talked briefly. And then I had a chance to visit with you in California maybe a year and a half ago. And you were like this. You may want to not want to talk about it, but I want to talk about it because it's a lot of fun and I'm a big music fan.
How good the food was in that restaurant we ate in?
Oh, it was off the charts. It was the best. I got to admit, it was one of the best meals I ever had in my life. But you're originally from out here, right? Like Long Island or something like that?
Yeah, well, I was born in Brooklyn. My family moved to Long Island, and then they moved back to Brooklyn when I was about 6 or something.
So you were like this guy who grew up, who loved music, was passionate about music. And
No.
I thought you were. Okay, go ahead.
No, in fact, my sisters used to listen to music. I have 2 younger sisters, and they used to listen to music, and I was busy studying all the time. And I was offended, that they would be making noise when I was trying to study. I can remember using their records as though they were Frisbees, throwing them off the porch. So I was not a music fan when I was very young. Now, when I got a little bit older, I became a music fan in a big way, like more and more and more, from being really a young teen and on, but not before that.
But you came heavily invested into it, big time. And you started to go to concerts and started to become acquainted with some very well-known people in the New York City area. Am I right, or am I getting this wrong?
No, you are getting it right. And it wasn't just go to concerts. I became the chairman of the Student Activities Board at my university, State University of New York at Stony Brook. And I had practically an unlimited budget. And in those days, if you wanted, you could book a band pretty directly and for very little money. So I got to meet the Doors when they were recording their first album and got to know them by, helping them out find drugs while they were in New York and marijuana and a few other things. And then booked them for $400.
So people forget what you said is really great, because I know like local high schools around here, like Kenmore East. I maybe it's rumors, but I heard like Rush played there once. And your point is, it was very different. You could get bands to play at like schools and different universities and venues like that. Correct?
Right. There wasn't as much of an organized industry as there is now. I mean, now a band goes on a tour and everybody has to pay a lot, and there's lots and lots of middlemen. And that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, that's it. You don't get the band. But in those days, like I said, I went up to Jackson Browne and Tim Buckley at a Velvet Underground concert and got them to come and play at my school for basically 3 months. They hung out there and played all the time. I paid Tim Buckley $50 to open a concert.
And for the young people listening, Jackson Browne was, He is one of the greatest artists of all time. But at that time, he was basically ethereal. Like, people would die to touch the guy. Am I wrong about that? I mean, I only know what I've read, but he was... Well,
at that time, he wasn't well known, right? He didn't have an album out yet. He was just this kid who, we were around the same age, and we just met at a Velvet Underground concert. Him and Tim Buckley and another guy named Steve Noonan. They had just sort of come to the East Coast. And you were right about a lot of people wanting to touch him, but it wasn't because he was famous. It was because he was like really talented and really good looking, and he became like the it boy in New York City for a while.
So
in fact, he had an affair with Nico from the lead singer of the Velvet Underground.
So how did you take it to the next level? How did you by the way, the Velvet Underground, one of the best ever. So how did you take it to the next level?
I went to every show they did. Yeah, I love that band.
Listen, when you hear some of the music today, it's haunting. And the most amazing thing about it sounds current. It sounds like it could have came out a week ago. It sounds more. It's amazing. So it's
funny that you should say that, because I was friendly with many years later. I was just socially friendly with Sammy Hagar. At a time when he had a band called Montrose, a heavy metal band, and I liked them. And I was a writer, and I wrote a cover story about them in a local magazine, and we became friends. And recently, I hadn't heard their music in a really long time. I mean, Sammy went on to become, the famous Sammy Hagar, and then the lead singer of
Van Halen.
Van Halen, and he's still very active and is having a great old time. But
great, by the way, he's like 70-something years old. His voice hasn't really changed. He hasn't lost the voice. Anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
It's amazing. But I recently listened to the hit songs that were on Montrose that I liked so much. Oh my God, were they horrible? They sounded so bad. I mean, you talk about the Velvet Underground standing up, still standing up. Absolutely. But unfortunately not Montrose.
No, Montrose, I would agree with that. Even though Sammy Hagar sounds better as good today as he did 20 years ago. Moving on. So you became what? A producer, right? A record executive?
No. I became the chairman of the student activities board at my school, a DJ, a rock writer, and then I moved to Europe. Well, I thought I was going for the summer, but as it turned out, I spent 7 years traveling around Europe, Asia, and Africa. I bought a Volkswagen van. I drove to India, all through Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Pakistan.
You drove to India from where?
Sorry?
You drove to India from where?
Oh, from London.
That's insane. So what was that like? Holy cow.
Well, that was like a big part of my life. I mean, I basically was on the road for 2 years, and meeting other cultures in a really intense way. Because when you have no money, which I had no money, you're on the ground and you're with people. I only stayed in a hotel once on that whole 2 year time. I was living in my van or living with families who we met. So it's a really different kind of an experience than it has been for me since then. Now I stay in hotels like a normal person. But I mean, just to give you one example, I went with some Canadian friends horseback riding into the Hindu Kush, which is the most remote part of Afghanistan. And I fell off the horse at one point and broke my ankle, kind of not really broken, but almost. And it was the winter was coming, and they weren't going to stay, and I had no choice. I had to stay, and the family took me in a little tiny village. I mean, village is a funny way to put it, because it was just two compounds, two families living there. And, there I am experiencing Afghan life. At the time, I could speak a little Farsi, which was the language of Kabul and was the language of Iran where I had been. But they spoke Pashtun, and no one spoke any Farsi at all. So I had to learn a whole new language just to make myself understood at all. Like, where's the toilet?
You should write a book about that experience alone. 2 years like that, it's amazing. But
and leave out the whole thing about Jimi Hendrix and all that.
No, you got a lot going on, I got to admit. So you got into the actual job of promoting acts, or what? I mean, what did you do?
Well, what I did was when I got back to the U.S. after being overseas for almost 7 years, I wound up at one time in San Francisco. And I was writing about and photographing rock bands, and then I started a record label of my own, an independent record label called 415 Records, and we signed some bands, we had some success. I wound up selling the label to what's now Sony, then it was called CBS Records, and so I started getting some what you would call legitimate experience in the corporate world, which is kind of a joke, but I did, and then I hated Sony a lot. It was a very, very corporate situation, and it was like it's almost as if they hated the artists. They didn't respect the artists, and I didn't like the way the artists were being treated, and I decided to leave. And just at the time when I decided to leave, Seymour Stein, who was at the time the chairman of Sire Records, which was part of Warner Brothers, asked me if I would come and run his label as general manager, and I did. And that started me on my career at Warner Brothers, and eventually I wound up as president of Reprise, which is half of the company. And
you signed a ton of interesting acts,
well, not personally, but my A&R staff did. Yes, a lot. We inherited a lot of really great acts, and we signed new acts, as well, like Green Day, for example. I think you're a fan
a Bay Area
right?
band, weren't they, or no?
Say that again?
Were they from the Bay Area? I think they were.
Yes, they were. They were from the Bay Area, and they came from a tradition in the Bay Area of real activism, and not read from a book. I mean, Billy Joe, was the son of a single mother, and they lived in a trailer park, and he understood from experience what it meant to be working class. And
I saw them perform just probably when you signed them in '94 in Toronto. They opened up for Bad Religion, and there was probably you remember the tour? There's probably, I don't know, a couple hundred kids in the room, and I'll tell you what, they melted the room. I mean, the energy, and we never heard of them before, right? They're the opening act for a band that we all knew and we all loved, and we all left there spending every dollar we had at the merch table because we were like, that was amazing. And they were fantastic. And when I first saw them, it was really, I still remember it. The energy was palpable.
Yeah, some bands are just amazing live bands. Other bands are more, studio bands. But Green Day, absolutely an amazing live band, like unbelievable. And that's how they won their fans. I mean, they were on an independent label, and when we signed them at Reprise, they already had a huge fan base. And that was kind of our specialty at Reprise, signing bands that were great live and that could operate on their own without a record label dictating who they were. So,
one more I want to mention that's popular around here is Bare Naked Ladies. I think, right?
That's right. That's exactly the case of Bare Naked Ladies. I mean, it took them 6 albums to break in the United States, but it really, although yes, it was finally a big, huge hit song that broke them. But meanwhile, I remember I would bring program directors and music directors of big stations to see them, and they would be in shock at the size of the live audience and how the audience knew every one of their songs and the audience loved them, and they couldn't understand. This was their town, a band they never heard of, getting 20,000 people coming out to see them, buying tickets and seeing them and knowing the songs and really going crazy, and in their town where they would be playing stuff that couldn't draw 1,000 people. And that really helped us to finally break them. Although, like I said, it took a very long.
How did you keep them for 6 albums? I mean, they were dying, right? I mean, they were popular in Buffalo.
No, they were making their money from from live tours. I mean, it wasn't, right around the same time we had almost the exact same experience with another band, Depeche Mode. Now, the difference was that Bare Naked Ladies were very big in Canada. Depeche Mode was very big everywhere in the world but the United States. But again, 6 albums before they broke. But meanwhile, they had a loyal, huge following, and it was because of their live show, and people just loved them. But radio didn't get it at first. Eventually, they did. The interesting thing about that is that I would always be getting pressure from the corporate guys at Time Warner, who would be saying, drop these bands. Why are you wasting our money? Bare Naked Ladies is never going to happen. Depeche Mode is never going to happen. You're crazy. You're wasting our money. And when we finally did break the band, they had 5 albums that basically had never been heard. Each one had 5 albums. We made so many millions of dollars from the catalog, because when you're trying to break a new record, when you're trying to break a new record, you have to spend $5 or $6 on promotion and merchandising and marketing to break that. Sometimes you spend as much as $10 on a new record, whereas catalog, it's between 1 and 2 cents. So you could imagine the kind of profits that would come rolling in from when these bands finally broke on all of the old albums that had never sold, where you spend nothing.
Music with you all day, but these people want to hear politics. And one more question, though. I honestly could talk about this all day long, because I love this stuff so much. Can an artist make money today? I don't see first of all, I don't see that many kids in their garages anymore. I know a lot of kids in their computers. Is there a market? Is there a vehicle to deliver music? Do kids have hope in that career today? Or how is it just?
Yes, again, like I said, they make their money doing live shows. Not now during the pandemic, but they make money doing live shows. They make money from selling their merchandise. And they make money from using their music in soundtracks, movies, TV, ads. So yeah, there is definitely money to be made, but it's always been the same. There's always been a hierarchy. I don't know. I'm just going to make this figure up of 5, 6, 7% of the bands and the artists who are making 90% of the money in the music industry. You see what I mean? And all those other bands are sort of just struggling to get by. All those artists are looking for a break.
What's your proudest, or who are the bands you like working with the most? Can I ask you that? Or you don't want to say it, probably.
I love my bands. So it's very, very hard to say. It really is hard to say. I mean, Lou Reed, was awesome. Because he was like intellectually stimulating. I loved working with Lou all those years. Remember back Velvet Underground guy, and then eventually he came. I was able to get him to come to Reprise. I loved working with Joni Mitchell, who I hired when she was just a kid to come and play my school. And then many, many years later, I came to Reprise and she was there. I loved working with Neil Young. These people are so intense and so intellectually stimulating that it's just a joy to work with them. But everybody has something to offer, and I looked at it like that. I'll tell you something else, Nate. Maybe this is a good transition, but to me, working with candidates is very much like working with artists. At Reprise was a little different from most labels because we never tried. The first question that always comes up about artistic freedom, the big one, is who picks the single. And that's always a point of contention because the band always has what their idea is, and the promotion department always has what their idea is, and it's usually not the same. And every other major label would always come down on the side of the promotion department, and they would tell the band, screw you, it's our album, and you if you don't like it, pound sand. Reprise, I would tell my promotion guys, try to talk them into the way you're seeing it. Try to convince them. And sometimes they were able to, but mostly they weren't. And I would always go with what the band wanted. In the end, after all the arguments, the band got the final word. And it's similar with working with candidates where you have to be respectful of them. Just like the band, it's their life. They write these songs, and if they fail, I still get my salary, but they have to go be a janitor. And with candidates, it's their campaign. It's never going to be my campaign. It's always I want to help them to achieve their vision and their goals, and make sure their values are the ones that are presented to people. And that's why
you and I have never talked about this before, but I can tell you personally what you're saying resonates deeply. My first time I ran for office, I say this all the time. I'm pretty comfortable with the team I have now, but once upon a time, a lot of people would come in and they'd be looking just to score a buck, to take advantage of you, and to give you crazy advice. I had a guy who was he wasn't even here. He was in California, and I couldn't get him on the phone. And and then he was just completely a no-show. And then beyond that, I could go into other things, but. And then, after I had lost in 2018, the guy is talking to reporters like he was by my side giving me all the greatest advice in the world. And I was like, where was this guy? We had fired him because he just wasn't here. And I think there's a lot of people that try to come in and reshape you, try to tell you can't say what you want to say, try to control your voice. And, I didn't come in.
And the same with music. Try to reshape you. I mean, we signed the band because we see something in them and we see how great they are. And then to reshape them and change them, that's horrible. We'll do the album cover for you. No, we want the authentic voice of the artist, just like we want the authentic voice of the candidate. In fact, I was arguing with a campaign manager today because a candidate sent me a guest post, and it was obviously not written by him. And I'm saying, our readers want to hear the authentic voice, the real voice, and get to know the candidate. They don't want a staffer. They don't want a staffer's opinion. And I couldn't get them to understand. Not endorsed.
I think my staff makes me stronger now. But, I think I'm around people that respect me. And some of these people are people that I had to, find myself. They weren't referrals from Washington or anything else. They're people that came to me over the course of running for 2+ almost 3 years. But I think that...
Well, this guy, one of you guys who I've been speaking to the last few days, a guy named Torin, is really, really good. I could tell right away he's real smart and knows how, he's the kind of guy that I would have hired at when I worked at Warner Brothers. I was responsible for jobs for hundreds and hundreds of people, and I very rarely meet campaign staffers who I would have hired, but you could tell who yes and who no.
I just want to say this because you brought it up. Torin is someone that I met on the campaign trail, and I saw talent in him, and I said, "Listen, this guy's got talent. I need him to be around me." And he's been, for 3+ years, he's been fantastic and a friend, and he's seen the worst side of me, not the best side. My campaign manager currently, she's seen. I put her through hell, and she's stood by my side. And so all the guys around me now, guys and girls that are around me now, are people that Howie, if you came out here, you're people you'd want to be around, people that you can trust and you can like. But that is not always the case in politics, and it took me a long time.
You learn from a first race. There's very few people. There are a few, but very, very few people go in and beat an incumbent on the first time around. It's the second time that we wind up seeing wins. And that's the position that you're in, although you're not running against an incumbent, but you're still running in a very, very red district, and you've learned from the first time. And just like you're talking about now about staffing, people don't understand how important that is, but it's completely crucial. In fact, even when you go to Congress, I would say that, I don't know, 80%, maybe 75% of members of Congress are completely ineffectual, can't get anything done, can't do anything because they have crappy staff.
The ones that are good, including some of the superstars like the new ones like AOC, they have great staffs. From what I hear.
Yes, the ones who are good all have good staff. Some of my favorite members of Congress have terrible staff and they can't get anywhere. And then you see the difference. You talk to someone like Ted Lieu who has great staff, and look, he's accomplished so much. I don't want to name. Well, I'll name one other person. Raul Grijalva used to have the worst staff imaginable. He couldn't get anything done. Nothing got done in his office. It was just a dead zone. And he finally hired this woman to be his chief of staff. She fired almost everybody and whipped that place into shape. And suddenly he becomes, he gets his dream job. I mean, it's not easy to get your dream job, but he did as the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee. And he is able to get things done now because he has a great staff. I know amazing members of Congress who are such great people and have such vision and are so wonderful, cannot get anything done. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In a whole career, they'll get nothing done because they have bad staff.
Very real quick. Let me give the opportunity to do this. Austin, you're the best. Connor, you're the best call time guy I ever had. Nicole, man, thank you for holding it together. Torin, man, you've been with me for years, and what can I say? We're like family at this point. And forgive me for my shortcomings. I love you. Matt, you're not on the team right now, but listen, we all love you. We miss you. Samantha, Mary, we miss you. I miss seeing you. Hunter, you are doing the best field work we've ever had done for this campaign. And then all the people outside of the campaign that are doing so well. I care about all you guys. Amanda, you've been a huge shot of professionalism to the campaign. And Jim, I got to say one more thing. I'm sorry to do this to you, Connor, or sorry to do this to you, Howie, but they're all listening.
No, I'm happy to hear it.
Jim Sharp is a guy who's been with me for years, and I love him. He's been a father figure. He's been a brother to me, and I love the people I'm with, and we're going to – and beyond that, all you watching right now, and there's a lot of people out there, Nancy, Jane, Bonnie. But of course, Bonnie and Lima, I'll see you this week, Lima. I love all you guys, and we're gonna do this together, and we've been doing it together for a long time, and I'm proud of what we've done in NY27. Let me ask you. You talk to candidates all over the country. You watch this campaign. What do you think? And give me your honest. You can be tough on me. You can be as tough on me as you were on Gavin Newsom.
No, there's no reason to be tough on you. You're doing what you need to do. I feel you're going to win this time. People don't realize how close you were last time, and not just close, but it was either the closest race in the country or one of the closest races in the country. It didn't get decided for months, and not only that, but it was in an incredibly red district. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it an R11 district?
I think it was R13 at one point. Listen, I'll tell you this.
It's the reddest district in the state of New York, and you did better than anybody. It is just amazing in a district like that. No one in the country came close to how well you and your team did. That's why I feel such confidence that you're going to win. Actually, I was going to say in November, but it's before November. Even though you're running against some.
I think we're worried about June because of the turnout. We got to get everyone watching right now to turn out. But I'll tell you what, we have more support than we have more. The people that are with us are more with us now than they were in 2018. Now, because it's such a crazy district, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're feeling confident, more and more confident every single day. And I got to give a shout out to everyone watching. We don't get any of that big Washington money. So all of your money that you guys are giving to the campaign is great. Our goal was to get a $5,000 goal. We're at $4,000, and that's from small dollar amounts. We raise almost all of our money in the district, Howie. We don't take any corporate money. We never have. And we do it on these online meetings like this. People give in any way that they can. And I'm grateful for every single donation. AJ Magnus says to you, Howie, great to see you live in live stream with Nate. Thanks for your support. And this is someone who knows who you are, so that's great. So, Howie, what do you think about the state of politics in the country today? You can be honest, and we can disagree, but where are we headed as a country? Are we going to beat Trump in 2020?
Oh, I think we're going to beat Trump by a landslide. Absolutely. I think that it's not so much that Biden is going to beat anybody. Biden couldn't beat his way out of a paper bag, but Trump is going to lose by huge numbers. That's my prediction. I think it's just all about him. I don't think there's anything that he can do to make it about Biden. And if he can't do that, he has no chance to win. I did a story on my blog today about how close it is in Utah. That's been a Republican bastion. Republicans win there by 70% when they run statewide, and yet Trump is a couple of points. Exactly 2 points ahead of Biden.
Yeah, people are saying, look, he is all talk. The promises haven't come to pass. There's people that will never change, but most people are looking at the reality and saying, where's the health care you promised? Where's the reduced drug prices you promised? Where's the infrastructure you promised? And never mind the fact that 100,000 people are dead.
Yes. Well, the thing is, there are always going to be, 30%, even in a district like yours, 40% of people who love Trump. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. But there are a huge number of independents. And in your district, too, there are a lot of independents. And those people went for Trump, but they're not going for him again.
They're not.
Not anywhere.
Listen, when I ran in 2018, Trump was powerful. Like, I would talk to people, and they're like, they loved him. I don't see that same type of love and devotion. I see people, even the people that support him, they fall back on millions of justifications for the reasons why they support him. They're not even sure about the reasons. They're using mental gymnastics to find out a reason why. So I know. Listen, can I go into some controversial topics here?
Absolutely.
So listen, when I first started talking to you, I talked to everybody, and especially someone like you who's been very, very good to me and been honest to me. A lot of people think you're controversial, and a lot of people say, don't talk to Howie, he's too controversial. Why do they think you're controversial?
You've been talking to Nancy Pelosi?
But why do they think that, Howie? Let me ask you.
Well, I'll tell you something. When I was, my grandfather ran for the state legislature in New York before I was born, and he won. And when he and about, I don't remember, 12, 13, 14, 15 people won, and they were on the Socialist Party line in New York. And when they got up to Albany, they were arrested, and they never got to take their seats. and it was done by the Republicans who controlled the legislature at the time, and the Democrats didn't help at all. And my grandfather was a hero to me, and when I was very, very young, and before I even understood it, he would always say to me, "There's only one thing worse than a Democrat, and that's a Republican." And my feelings about the Democratic Party are feelings that although I intermittently thought of myself as a Democrat, but my feelings overall through my life about the Democratic Party came from my grandfather. So I don't really feel loyalty to the Democratic Party, especially a kind of a corporate Democratic Party that came into great power in the early 90s with Bill Clinton. And I feel my allegiance is to progressive values and progressive ideas. That's what I care about. Now, that means there's never going to be any Republican that I'm going to be looking towards. But half the Democrats I'm not crazy about either. So why am I controversial? I've helped so many reformers win their elections against the establishment Democrats. And that's the one thing that people like Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and the kind of people who you're talking about who say I'm controversial and you stay away from me, they hate that. These are their pals. These are the people they've built long relationships with. And when someone like me comes along and helps a candidate win over these people, they flip out. I mean, I helped Donna Edwards win her first campaign. And I helped Matt Cartwright in Pennsylvania win his campaign, and they beat Blue Dogs who were very, very, very close with Nancy and Hoyer, and I can't tell you how much hatred was coming my way from these people, and it's like that all the time. I mean, Blue America was the only PAC in the entire country, no matter what anybody tells you. And this is like public record. We were the only PAC to spend independent money on AOC. Who did AOC run against? She ran against the guy who was supposed to be the next Democratic Speaker of the House. He's somebody as high up in the Democratic Party hierarchy as can be. And I was spending money to defeat him and to elect AOC. How do you think they feel about that?
They don't like that.
They don't like that at all. And right now, America is supporting candidates who are running against Nancy Pelosi and candidates who are running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz and a candidate who's running against Steny Hoyer. I mean, they don't like that. They want people to follow blindly, not people who have their own ideas. I mean, I hold their feet to the fire, and I do it constantly.
Listen, I'm glad there's people like you involved in politics. It helps keep us. It helps, it keeps our side moving
on their toes.
Yeah, on their toes. Right. That's the best way to say it. On your toes. But listen. I have had good experience with Nancy Pelosi. I'm proud to be. I'm a little different than you. I'm proud to be a Democrat. I love my local Democratic chairs because I don't have experience in Washington like other people do. My experiences is with people in Wyoming County, or my experiences with people in Genesee County. And
sure.
when I think of the party, I think of the people here on the ground who are sacrificing and doing it for free and not for their career. So I'm a believer in the Democratic Party. I do agree, though, the Democratic Party is too corporate. And my interactions with people in D.C. have been bewildering, shocking, rather, from time to time.
Well, wait, Nate, just wait till you get into Congress and everything becomes transactional. And, what people in your district want, from what I can tell, and I've been in your district. I've been both in Buffalo and in Rochester and in between. And people want an independent voice. They don't want someone who's a party hack, certainly not a Democrat who's a party hack. So you're going to have to tread very carefully. Now, the Steny Hoyers and Nancy Pelosi's of the world are going to try to get you to tread carefully in a different direction than I hope you tread in. They're going to want you to be more conservative. They're going to want you to vote against Democratic proposals when they don't need you. That's their idea of a successful Republican-like candidate. But that isn't you. So I'm on you sticking to your own feelings and to sticking with your electorate who are going to put you in there to be an independent voice.
Republicans or Democrats. I'm telling you right now. There's a lot of things I like about what Nancy Pelosi has done. There's a lot of things I don't like. And I will stand up to her, and I'll stand up to anybody else on the right-hand side of the aisle if it means the right thing for my district. I'm going to represent my district. I don't serve the party. I serve the people here, and I will say that over and over again because it's really who I am. One thing
It's the only way you're going to have a career in a district like yours.
Well, I mean, I just want to do what's right. If I want to be able to have a clear conscience at night and do what I believe is right. I had a rough go with. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Back 2 years ago when I first got this endorsement, they tried to get me out of the race, and I got a call from
Steny.
No, not Steny. I got a call from who's the guy that AOC beat? Crowley. Yes, and Crowley, if you're watching, come talk to me about it. This is as true as it gets. I got a call and it said, "Hey, we got to do us a solid and get out of this race." I was like, I am not doing any such thing. Because they wanted to put someone else in the race.
And he was very genial, wasn't he? Very genial when he spoke to you, and a backslapping good old boy.
He was when it started, and then it got increasingly aggressive as the call went on because he saw I wasn't going to take his bait. And I won't go into the full discussion, but I didn't know who he was. That tells you how naive I was about politics. I was like, who the heck are you to call me?
Who the hell he was? People in his own district didn't know who he was. That's why she won. She came in and beat the third most powerful member of Congress because no one knew him in his own district.
That's pretty detached.
Yeah. Well, he didn't even live there.
But at the same time, I've struggled. You're one of the few people on the other side, on the more progressive side of the aisle that has gotten behind me. Recently, we have the endorsement of NIPAN, which I'm proud of that. But really, when you take an independent route, you got to be willing to sometimes be alone. And I'm grateful for the people in NY27, including the unions that have gotten behind me because, both. This is true. Both the progressive side of the Democratic Party and also the more conservative corporate side of the Democratic Party have agendas and national agendas that sometimes it's hard for candidates who are independent to fit into. Go ahead. If you disagree, go ahead. Let me know.
Oh, I agree.
Okay.
When Blue America looked at you, we looked at the issues that seemed important to you, and you seemed like, more like a progressive guy than a party guy. I mean, that you were not campaigning on a party platform. You were campaigning on a platform that, first of all, seemed progressive and populist, and second of all, seemed geared to your district, not geared to a couple of party bosses in Washington, D.C.
Let me just ask you that. Why do you think I'm good to be geared toward my district? And you know the district. You're from New York State, at least, and you've been up here several times, and you studied the district. Why do you think I am geared to the district?
Because there are independents in your district who are not interested in which party is doing what. They're just interested in what's important to them, and that's the way you presented yourself as well. Someone who wants to serve the interests of the working families of New York 27. And that's the only way anyone is going to win there. No one is going to win. No Democrat is ever going to win there by trying to, be almost as conservative as a Democrat. Almost as conservative as a Republican. And that is the way that Steny Hoyer and guys like Joe Crowley think that you win a district like New York 27 by
Howie,
a little bit less.
On a daily basis, someone calls me, some wise figure, almost a daily basis, calls me and says, you need to go to the middle. You're screwing this up. And I'm like, I always say, I don't even pay attention if I'm going down the middle or if I'm going to the right. I just do what I think is right. I think that's the old way of doing things. I think what you said earlier is what people want is someone who's sincere about what they believe instead of someone who's manufactured. And
that's right. And even if there'll be times when people don't agree with you on everything, but if they see you as being honest and sincere and trying to do the right thing, and you can explain to them why it's the right thing, they'll come around regardless of what party it is. I mean, in a district like yours, obviously you need to get all the Democrats behind you. You have to, muster everybody who's a Democrat, and you have to win all the Democratic-leading independents, and you have to be able to get some moderate Republicans. I mean, your district is too red not to. But the way to do that is by supporting populist issues, not by becoming a corporatist and not by becoming a Republican light figure that becomes a figure of derision. You're doing it the right way. Don't overthink it. You've been doing this for a while now. You know what you're doing, and you're doing it right. I mean, the DCCC was unable to take a district like yours and win in it, or get as a bigger percentage of votes than you got. They have nothing to say. They couldn't take a district like yours and do as well as you did. They never have, and they never will.
Thanks, Howie. I appreciate the kind words. Before we go, and I got to say a couple things. Hey, Bill Meyer's asking me who does my drywall work. Hey, Bill, that's a homemade job back there. That's in-house work. I'm sorry about that. Okay, listen, everybody out there, thank you for listening. Howie, you want to finish up with any kind words or anything that you want to share with the people that are following us in NY27?
Yeah, this is a really important election, and the fact that New York is going to have a primary, and that Nate is running. I mean, you're running on the same day as the presidential primary. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to come out. I mean, there are a lot of reasons to come out. You might want to come out because you want to see, you want to give Biden a good push. And against Trump, or you might want to come out, as I would, to help elect some Bernie delegates. But whatever it is, it's going to be really, really important to support progressives who are running for Congress. And in this case, it's Nate, because no matter who is the president in 2021, that's going to be a corporate person. So we need non-corporate people in Congress to be pushing in that direction. And I'm positive that Nate is one of those people.
What do you think of Mr. Sanders, Bernie Sanders? I mean, he has been a huge influence on so many people. I don't understand why he remains. I don't understand why he remains a source of so much derision from establishment types. It seems like
they're afraid of him. That if Bernie ever became president, their power and their ability to make huge amounts of money would diminish entirely. They hate him for their own reasons. These people are not our friends. I know you want to be friends with them, but you'll learn the hard way that they think about themselves. They're not thinking about the same people you are. You are thinking about the people who live in your district. They're thinking about lining their pockets and building
Howie, don't get me wrong. I'm not naive. I understand that. And I am going to go in there with my eyes wide open. Trust me. I'll
help you keep them open. We did an album soundtrack for a movie called Eyes Wide Open.
How was it?
The soundtrack did really well. I don't remember how the movie did, but the soundtrack sold over 1 million. I have a platinum record for it.
Wow. Listen, well, Howie, you are so much fun to talk to because you're so full of life and energy, and there's so many things you've done. I could talk to you all night, but I don't want to waste too much of your time. Maybe we'll do this again sometime if you have additional time. We'll talk about some more issues. Maybe after the election.
Right, or we can talk about my life in the Hindu Kush. I started talking about that, and I got off on another topic.
Yeah, I'd love it. I love it. We can talk about, all that stuff. Listen, trust me. There's people that are involved in this campaign that would be blown away by your discussion. I know that for sure.
We didn't even talk about Jimi Hendrix at all.
Well, give me a little bit of Jimi Hendrix before we go.
Okay, I'll give you one Jimi Hendrix story. I'm going to tell you one that I haven't told too much. So Jimmy played at my college, and then afterwards we had a party at my house. And my mother and father had come from Brooklyn to see the concert. But that was a special night for me because it was the first time I had decided which of two girls I was into was going to be my girlfriend. So we went to bed, and then around 3 a.m, I woke up and I decided to look out my bedroom door and see, just to make sure the house was still there, because it had been a pretty big party. And Jimi Hendrix was not the kind of person who was easy to talk to at that time. And when I first met him, he was, but later he wasn't. And I looked down the hall, and there was my mother, who's just like a normal housewife. She was not like some kind of special hippie type person in any way at all. But there was my mother and Jimi Hendrix passing a joint back and forth and talking. And I thought, oh God, I know, I'm not seeing this, and turned around and went back to bed.
Listen, one more thing about him. I mean, I only know the music, right? So if anyone out there is listening and you're like, is Jimi Hendrix good? Go right now and look up Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix and listen to that with fresh ears. It sounds like it was made last week. It is just trippy and challenging, and they do that reverse guitar in it. You know what I'm talking about, right, Howie?
The first time I met this guy, he wasn't even Jimi Hendrix at the time. He was Jimmy James. He had a pickup band that was the opening, not the opening band, the backup band for a folk singer named John Hammond Jr., who's also great, by the way. And and I'm sitting there in the audience. I never heard of him. No one else ever did either. And he is playing guitar with his teeth. And I went up to him afterwards, and that's how we became friends. I went crazy on the guy.
What was New York like at the time? It was just full of bands like that, right? It was just energy everywhere.
Yes, that's right. And I'm sure that, although not during the pandemic, but at all times there's something like that going on. There are musicians, there are people who are creative, people who are writing, and so I was really lucky that I fell into it, and that's really what it was. It was not anything but luck. And I just fell right into it, and it became my path. It worked. I literally at my school, although I didn't wind up booking the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or Bob Dylan. And I think I got everybody else who was at all famous at the time, or at all. Many of them weren't famous. I mean, like I said, I booked Jimi Hendrix. No one ever heard of him. No one knew who he was. I would book these people, and then the next day, there would be a backlash from these very straight type students who would try to get me impeached. I wasted $400 on booking the Doors, and they tried to impeach me for it. So think about that.
And they tried to impeach you for the Doors?
Yeah. Well, they didn't have an album. No one knew who they were.
What was he like, Jim Morrison, back then? That's just dripping in charisma, right? He was just you could see he was just.
By the time I got to meet him, he was already a kind of a drug casualty. And the reason that Jim and I became friends was because there was this rage about this really, really, really bad drug, really terrible. I don't even want to say the name of it because I don't want to give anybody any ideas. It's so horrible. And it's not around anymore anyway. I mean, I guess you can get it, but it's just horrible. But he loved it, and I kind of liked it a lot. Yeah, I loved it too. And he knew I had it. So that was the bond that we had. No one else in the Doors even wanted to touch it. And one day they were playing this. That. Sorry?
He was already deep into drug culture and abuse.
Oh yeah. So that's what he was like, someone who was deep into drugs, but very, very, a very creative guy, and a certain kind of energy. He was, when I met him, he was a very, very, very special guy. They were recording their first album when I first met them, and they were doing mixes in New York. They had recorded mostly in L.A. They came to New York to do some mixes and a little bit of overdubs, and they took out they became the house band at this club called The Salvation, a tiny, tiny club that I don't know held 70 people, and they played there every night for a month while they were doing all this work. And I went to every show. I mean, I have a living room that's bigger than the club is. And
that's amazing.
One night,
so wait a second. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going. No, keep going.
I was going to say one night, the band. This is the way they worked. The band would go on. The three guys would go on, and they would start playing an instrumental. And then 6, 7, 8 minutes in, Jim Morrison would walk out and start singing. That's where they did all their shows. So the three guys go out to play, and Morrison says to me, "Let's do some of that drug." I said, "You crazy?" Because it was a drug. It was like it was like an acid trip that lasted for 20 minutes. That's what it was like. So it was very, very powerful. And there's no chance anyone could take that drug and stand up. You would take it and you would fall right down. And he had to go on, and he wanted to do the drug. And I said, no, you're crazy. You have to go on stage. He said, let's just do it. Doesn't matter. Let's do it. Let's do it. And he wouldn't take no for an answer, so we did it. And to this day, some of the guys in that band hate me for that moment because he couldn't get out.
Because he couldn't perform.
No, I mean eventually he did, but not when he was supposed to.
So the last question, and I'll let you go. I promise. So
You don't have to. I'm having a good time.
You lived in New York, right?
Yeah.
And you love New York. You were raised in the area. You love it. It's your home.
Absolutely.
Now you've been in Los Angeles for years.
Yes.
So this is my take. Like, I love New York too, but it's not my city. When I go there, I've been there hundreds of times, but I'm still a tourist. I never lived there, and you don't. Even though I've been in every inch of it, like running or jogging or like visiting people, it's not my city. So even though I love going down there, it's not my city. But I also feel the same way in Los Angeles. Like when I'm in Los Angeles, there's a cool vibe there. And you can see like the old movie theaters, the old neon, and then you have the new communities and you have the beach. But it's just really hard to understand and to be part of as an outsider. What do you think of that take? Is it
I understand exactly what you're saying. My way of looking at it is a little bit different because I've lived so many places around the world. I mean, I lived in Amsterdam for 4 years. I lived in London for a long time. New York, as you said. I lived in San Francisco for many years, and here. And each place I go to, I adopt as my home immediately. I mean, in music circles in San Francisco, people would refer to me as the mayor of San Francisco. Harvey Milk became one of my closest friends. What
was he like?
Harvey, amazing guy. One Harvey Milk story. We're sitting in his camera shop, and his is right after he was elected. So the first openly gay man to be elected to anything. And he's got huge sacks of mail from all over the country. And he took out a letter randomly from a kid from, I don't know, Iowa or Nebraska or something like that. And he starts reading it. And it was about how this kid had wanted to kill himself. And that by winning the election, Harvey gave him a reason to live and a reason not to kill himself. And it was just such a electric moment of him reading that letter.
That's the biggest change in my lifetime is the acceptance of LGBTQ plus communities and people. I mean, when I was a child, it was awful, especially in the quasi-rural community I lived in. I mean, I had friends who went through some of those problems. They were, just not accepted, and I can see that change dramatically in my lifetime. I mean,
and the biggest part of that change is that people are willing now to just deal with it and not to try to hide. I mean, immense numbers of people, maybe more than didn't, would just stay in the closet their whole life, and they would never admit to being gay, and they would get married and have usually shitty relationships, and horrible things would happen, and they would be susceptible to problems in their lives, in every part of their lives, and that was the norm. And that's gone. I mean, that whole gone.
And part of the change I got to say, because I see here that Cindy Appleton's watching, and she's saying she's sending her regards, and she's a local Democratic chair in rural New York, who I love very much. And people like you, Cindy, help make the change because it's even harder to fight for those issues in places like rural New York. And I got to say to you, Howie, we had our first Pride Parade in Batavia last year, which is in the center of NY27, and it was overwhelmingly positive. I mean, everyone was very, very positive, and there's a handful of protesters. And also thank you to the folks in Genesee County who were part of that, like Erica O'Donnell and Nikki Calhoun, that helped be part of that and promote it. But yeah, I think the people in rural America who fought for those just common decency and fairness should be applauded. So thank you, Cindy. I'm always grateful to you.
Yeah, once this kind of thing starts changing, once the early adapters adapt to it and it starts going in the right direction, I don't find it any easier or less easy in rural places than I do in urban places and suburban places. Once it starts, no matter what kind of a place you live in, decent people see it and understand it and go for it. They might not want to step out at first because of getting the approbation of their community, but once it gets going, not a problem anymore.
Yeah, I gotta say before you go, we raised some money while we were doing this, a few $100 talking. So thank you for all those. Listen, guys, if you're out there, we got 4 weeks to go. So we still have a fundraising gap to get our media blitz ready for June. So if you guys can donate, every bit helps, even of small dollar amounts. I always say it helps. So if you guys can donate, I would appreciate it.
And maybe not everyone knows this, but Marianne Williamson has endorsed Nate as well. And if you go to her Act Blue page, you can donate to Nate's campaign there as well.
She mentioned me on some show this morning. What was that show?
That was it's called Rising, and it's a Crystal Ball show on by The Hill, a publication out of Washington, D.C. It's just an inside politics thing. And she talked about something that we just talked about a little bit, about how candidates who run good campaigns the first time and come really close the way you did win the second time. And she mentioned you as being one of the candidates.
We're hoping so. We're feeling better and better every single day. And to have someone like you on the show to talk about openly and to be who you are, we're proud of that. And I'm proud to know you. And a lot of the values you represent, I'm proud to represent too, including healthcare for every single person in America, including campaign finance reform. We could go all day.
Green New Deal.
Absolutely. Look, it would be an economic boon for places like NY27. I mean, I talk to the. Go ahead.
You bet it would.
I talk to the unions all the time. They're like, we need to do this stuff now. Like, we need to start building these projects now. The only ones that are stopping it are the people who have a financial interest against it. That's it. And they spend remember, all the Republicans were for climate change and fighting climate change until the Koch brothers started giving money to the ones who weren't. That's what changed it. Until billions and billions of dollars started flowing into campaigns to fight against it, that's what changed it. So, Howie, a lot of people have loved listening to you. I hope you come back.
I hope you invite me. I had a good time too. Good to talk with you.
Before you go, I want to say this again. You're a good person, Howie. I love you, and I'm glad to know you, and I'm glad to meet you, and I'm proud to have you as part of this campaign.
Nate, in the next couple of years, I'm going to come to you one day, and I'm going to say, hey, Nate, I have a great candidate who's running for Congress. It's a tough race, but he really needs to get an endorsement from a member of Congress. And I hope you'll remember and help out with someone who will be in the position that you're in now when you're in Congress later.
I'll have their back. All right, we'll talk soon, okay?
Bye, Nate.
Take care, sir.